Do you think that I'm interviewing that you now, right?
All right.
Do you think that there was a possibility?
Wait, hold on. It's even funnier. You're interviewing me about Black history.
Yes, I was thinking that before too. This black nationalist is interviewing a white guy to teach him about Black history.
I'm gonna ask you about white people after this. It's okay.
All right, dope.
Explain my people to me, because I tell you, I do not understand them sometimes. They are very strange people.
I understand them. I study you.
You need to.
Hell yeah. Do you think without the interjection of white liberal propaganda and interception and the NAACP, do we defeat the Jim Crow South?
Oh,
and get these institutions, like, let's say, we're not going to get the South Carolina government to feed our institutions, and we're not going to get the Black Boule. We had Black Wall Street, right?
Yeah. See, this is my favorite question right here. So I did a whole interview with Killer Mike about 3 years ago, and they fucking buried it. They won't release it.
Oh wow, who's they?
Then it was the Huffington Post, and now it's owned. The interview is owned by The Intercept. I don't know if you know them, Glenn Greenwald. That's true, yeah. But they're not releasing it. I don't know what. But so Mike's whole thing is about Black armed self-defense.
Okay.
And that's my whole thing too. Well, it's one of my things. And so
Black guns matter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like going all the way back to Reconstruction and
okay,
and slavery, right? So like, so they flew me to Atlanta to talk about this with him, and it was great. So like, so you have in the South, and I'm not talking about Kentucky and Tennessee. I'm talking about Mississippi and Louisiana, the Deep South, right? You have a long history all the way back to the 1860s of Black people strapping up and firing on the Klan, the police, whatever random cracker walks by with some dynamite, whatever,
I knew it had to be.
And I brought the receipts. I mean, I showed him all the news clippings of all the articles about all the Black people over the last 150 years shooting back. Shooting back.
Yeah.
So, Tulsa, right? The famous thing in 1921, and everybody's talking about, right? The Black Wall Street in Tulsa, very wealthy neighborhood, right?
Yep.
Literally dropped a bomb on it from a biplane, and I mean, that was a
war. That was a mini battle. Black people were actually armed up, shooting with them and everything.
Yeah, they fucking fought back, and they killed a bunch of white people, right?
Right.
It's like, okay, you want to do this? There's going to be a price.
Right.
I mean, you might win, but there will be a price. This is not just going to be lynching anymore, right? So the 1890s was the height of lynching. That was like about 2 Black men a week, roughly. But then by the 1910s, what happens? Again, a lot of Black men go into the military, learn how to shoot, come back, not having it. So, 1920s, you have a lot of men and soldiers who know how to shoot. Anyway, so like you got during Reconstruction, you have like lots of Black men and women shooting back at the Klan that's trying to put them back in slavery. This is when the Klan was emerged in the 1860s. In 1920, you got the Red Summer in Chicago and Tulsa. This is these huge race riots.
Okay.
Well, if you look at the casualty rates, it's like more Black, but a lot of white people paid the price for being racist in that kind of way. It goes on and on. I mean, there's no stopping to that. And then you get into Jim Crow during the Civil Rights Movement.
Right.
As I told you, Martin Luther King's house had a gun behind every door in it. Every door. Charles, they were completely strapped. Charles Cobb has written a history of this. I wrote a review of it, but you can check it out. Yeah. And then I wrote this is in my book actually. So I went into the Birmingham police records from that Birmingham, Alabama, where Bull Connor and the dogs and the hoses were, right? And I was like, what was going on like in the streets of Birmingham right before all that happened in 1963, right before King came along?
Okay.
And I went to the resisting arrest records file, and I found like almost every single day some Black person beating the shit out of some cop in Birmingham. Like somebody, whatever, gets pulled over, arrested, doing something, and then they just start like punching, kicking, biting, scratching. Sometimes guns are pulled, whatever, rocks
Right.
thrown. For years, man, black people weren't just like getting their asses whooped in the streets.
Right. That's what they try to make it seem like.
No. And in fact, there's a great story in my book of a woman in Birmingham her name was Matilda Cunningham. She was like 23-year-old black woman.
Which book is this?
It's my book called Renegade History of the United States.
Okay.
There's a chapter on the civil rights movement. And one day, this was just really typical right around that time. It's just an example of many things like this happening. Three dudes who were in the Klan, most likely, came to her house and said, "Where's your nigger boyfriend?" And she said, "Hold on a second, let me go get him." She goes back, comes back with a shotgun. I said, "Here he is." And like, this is reported in the news, like the Birmingham newspaper reported this, you know.
Wow.
It's in the police records too. It's in the Birmingham racist ass police records, but it's like over and over and over again, black people like not happy. There was a whole day in Bessemer, which is right next to Birmingham, called Push Day, which was a day when all the black people were supposed to push white people off the sidewalks. This is Jim Crow. This is under Jim Crow. This is under Jim Crow. So
now, what was Push Day? Once a year, once a month, or
once a year? Yeah, once a year.
Oh, I'm about to make this a holiday as a joke. But go ahead.
That's the day when I hide in my house.
I'm gonna push this on Juneteenth though.
Okay, so this is the last part of the story.
Okay.
So this is what blows everybody's head open. All right, so everybody in the whole fucking world knows about the dogs and the hoses in Birmingham, right? And the poor little girls in their white Sunday dresses, right? It's a lie. Okay, so what happened? So what happened was he did indeed line up all these children and march them, but they marched straight into paddy wagons and went straight to jail. Okay, wait.
What do you mean?
Martin Luther King came to town. And he organized all the preachers to get all their kids to march. It was called the Children's March, right? And Bull Connor was like, "Cool, I'll have all my paddy wagons ready for them. You're going to march down the street. I'm going to take all these kids and all your activists and put them right in the paddy wagon, take them to jail for violating this or that law."
Okay.
That's exactly what happened. But
it was staged.
So and everyone knew that was staged. I mean, no one denies that. Here's the thing though. So that's not when the dogs and the hoses were used.
Okay.
You know when the dogs and hoses were used? When it went out on the black radio station earlier that day that there was going to be a protest at the park downtown. Thousands of people showed up who were not with Martin Luther King.
Oh.
They weren't with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference.
Okay.
They were not nonviolent Christians. They were normal, rational human beings who had been living under the fucking boot of segregation. So because they were intelligent, rational human beings, they were ready to fucking fight.
They were coming to bring that smoke.
They brought rocks and bricks and bottles and they threw them at the cops. And that is when they unleashed the dogs and the hoses. So
wow,
when you see that footage of dogs biting some people and hoses on people, those were rioters. Those were violent black people.
And the cops were getting their ass whooped.
Yeah.
So that was added. So the cops were in defense at that moment.
They sent 6 cops to the hospital that day. Okay. So then King is in prison with all of his people, right? And he writes the letter from Birmingham jail, which is like this really famous document, right? It's the famous, right? In that letter, King says this. It's a letter to the leadership of Birmingham, to the white leadership of Birmingham, the mayor, the clergy, Chamber of Commerce. He says, here's the deal. Black people are divided basically in this country between the types you just dealt with in the streets, the violent ones who hate white people, and they're led by people like Malcolm X. You got them. You can deal with them like this forever. Or look at me. Business suit, Christian as hell, wife and kids at home, good American. All I want is the red, white, and blue and to be a good citizen. What do you want? Which is it? Which is it, white people? You want to deal with me or deal with them? And of course, they were like, desegregate all of Birmingham, deal with Martin Luther King. My point is that it was the violent, anarchic black people who desegregated the motherfucking South. Because without them, King had no leverage, right?
Right.
What's he going to say? What's he going to say? Like, I'm going to still keep calling you unchristian. I'm going to still like have my children like walk past your cops. Like, what's that going to do? Who cares?
What about the sit-ins? Are those staged too?
I mean, it's all staged. I mean, the sit-ins like were real, you know,
The sit-ins, yeah, technically were staged, yeah. But they weren't like
doesn't mean
planned with, right. It's not wrong, right.
Yeah, but so like
it's Saul Alinsky tactics.
Yeah, but my point is that like none of the movement had any leverage without the violent.
Without the violent rising up. Wow. Wow.
And that's kind of what you see right now, right? I mean, I mean, unfortunately, riots work.
Right. Black Lives Matter has no power without the violent.
Yeah.
So now you're like, who do you want to deal with, the rioters or Black Lives Matter? I see this. I see what you're saying. Okay.
If I were DeRay, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be like, hey, you want to talk to me and my like genteel gay self? You know,
I could calm this all down for you.
Whatever university he comes from, you know, you want to talk to me, or you want to talk to Jamal who just fucked up your streets? You know, like who is it? You know, like I mean, and that's kind of what's going on, right? Minneapolis. Right. With their crazy asses, they're going to apparently defund their own police department because of all this. But like,
right.
And that's interesting. I'm just curious how that's going to go down, but you know, that wouldn't have gone down without the violence.